All right, guys, next up, PerfectPass install on a 1998 Malibu Sunsetter. I've got the pieces that we need right here. So we have our wiring harness. We have our, where is it? The servo and the bracket right here. Okay, so we're gonna get everything set up and ready to go here, and I'll film each step. All right, so we're at the boat. First thing I'm going to do is to mount the servo and the bracket, which I just assembled, screwed it on right here. Mount this onto the engine, which is going to go on the front hose, and I'm thinking probably right up here, and then it has to hook up to the throttle linkage there. So I'm going to just attach it to the hose with these two hose clamps, and we will see how it goes. All right, we got the servo and the bracket mounted here. Cable's hooked up, and then it goes right to the throttle body. Cable goes under this fuel rail. Okay, next step on the Sunsetter. So, like I said, the servo is mounted, cable is run, and the covers are back on. So, next step, what I did was I plugged in the wiring harness, and this is nice on the Sunsetter because on the V-Drive, I can just run it right along the back and all the way up to the console. So what I'm going to do is, if you look underneath here, I'm going to zip tie it up to the wires that are already there, and then just kind of run it all the way up, so it doesn't need to go anywhere else. And try to zoom out a little bit. So from the back of the boat, the harness can just go right here, and then I zip tied it up one already. So I'm just going to finish that up all the way up to the driver's seat, and then we will go from there. Okay, so I'm up at the dash. What I did was I mounted the gauge. You can see I put it right here. The wiring harness I ran all the way behind this little side panel by the throttle. I have the gauge display, just kind of wire hanging there. And then I'm going to wire the two other harnesses. So the harnesses we need, this one right here is the power wire. So it has a little fuse built in. It has a purple and a black. Purple wire goes to ignition on, and the black is ground. And then the other one is the RPM harness. The RPM has two connections too. It has a black wire and a gray. So the black wire is also ground, and the gray is the signal from the RPM. So there should be a spot right behind the dash where there's an RPM wire ready to tap into. So we'll find that, we'll hook these up, and I will show you once they're plugged in. All right, next step. So we have the power and the ground hooked up for this harness. That's power to the master module. We have the display wire, which we just need to plug in. And the final piece of this we have to wire under the dash is this gray wire, which goes to the RPM signal. And then the end of the harness will just plug into the master module. So I'm going to pull the dash off so we can see, and we can hopefully just plug into a connector right back there. All right, so we're under the dash. I've mounted the master module up on the top. So just to give you like a reference point here, if we're looking under the dash, there's our fuse block over there with our fuses. We have our medallion, the ignition and the switches, and then if I span over, it's all the way up here, like kind of at the top corner. Thought this would be good, just keep it out of the way as high as possible. And next up, we're just going to hook up all the harnesses, all the wiring, and then we will be ready to test it. All right, so everything's plugged in. You can see it's still kind of like a mess of cables. I'm going to zip tie those up neatly in just a minute, but I'm going to make sure it works first. So we'll flip the key on. We'll just kind of check everything and make sure it goes through the menus and check the servo, make sure it's operating correctly. All right, so we're back. So everything's been plugged in. The system is functioning properly. I just kind of bundled up the extra wire, used a bunch of zip ties, and then I ran the wire just kind of down and up and over the bulkhead and back to where it plugs in. So just kind of cleaned everything up. I left a little bit of slack in the wire just in case so nothing gets pinched or pulled. And then yeah, so what's gonna happen here, paddle wheel plugs in up here at this spot. So I don't have a paddle wheel, but I'm gonna upgrade to the GPS sensor that can plug in right there. It'll give a signal just as if it was the paddle wheel. That is made by Nautic Logic, and it's an upgrade just for this system. So it gives you a GPS, it plugs in right here, and then that'll give it a GPS signal for your speed.